Good evening and welcome to another episode of Inspired, a show that is dedicated to promoting the very best in talent in our community. We're very grateful to all the viewers who've been watching the last 10, 11 weeks. We really appreciate your positive comments and thank you for sharing. That's the great thing about the success that we've created, is that through you and you sharing this show to others and inspiring the next generation to look within the community for role models. That's the idea behind this show, and we're very grateful for every one of you for supporting us, and to J4S being our supporter of the show, and all the people behind Be Inspired that bring the show together on a weekly basis. Now, it's 1st of September, about to start your new academic life. You have expectation, you have wishes, and you have dream and ambition. Sometimes parents want you to do a certain subject, to become a certain type, a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, the traditional ways. Maybe you have other plans. Well, stay with me this evening because I've got an amazing guest who has done pretty much everything she set out to do, sometimes even excel in the ideas or wishes of her parents. My guest this evening has had an amazing career, qualified as an eye surgeon, working one of the most prestigious hospitals in the country. And then a decade later decides, I'm going to do something different that I want to do. My guest this evening is no other than Farhana Safa. Good evening.
Hi, how are you?
I'm very well. Thank you for taking the time out to speak to us.
Thank you for having me.
Introduce you, most people are lucky to have one successful career, but your young age, you've had two successful careers already. And an additional thing that I know, which I will talk about later, that you are successful at too. Let's start I know you quite well because you've been on BBPI, but for a lot of our viewers who've never come across you, would you mind doing a small introduction on yourself?
Okay, well, my name is Farhana Safa. As you have rightly said, I started off my career in medicine, studying to become a doctor, and then I became an eye surgeon, which I did for quite a few years actually, and worked at Moorfields, which was wonderful. And then sort of came to a point in my life where I decided something didn't feel right, and I actually wanted to pursue something creative, and just decided to do a complete U-turn and go into car design. So yeah, that's where I am.
Okay, so I know a lot of my viewers. In fact, I've had one or two people on my show who have some amazing cars, who love driving cars, some quite fast. But where do we start with you? So let's go back a bit, right? So let's go back to young Farhana in London, North London to be more precise, growing up. Tell us about that journey. How was life growing up in North London as a young British Bangladeshi?
Well, very, very humble beginnings, like most British Bangladeshis. I grew up on a council estate in North London, in King's Cross, actually. So fairly central, I guess. And yeah, I guess it's the usual story of quite a lot of hardship at the beginning. My parents had come over and working day and night. So it was difficult. But I mean, I get my work ethic from them. They just worked so hard, and eventually worked us out of that environment. So, the opportunities weren't great. I didn't go to private school, and didn't have all the finer things, all those sorts of opportunities. So it was a very kind of humble start to life. I have one other sister, Afsana, who's 17 months older than me, and we're very, very close and had each other growing up, which was fantastic. So yeah, we're always there for each other and still remain each other's pillars of support. So yeah, that was the kind of start. I went to school in Highgate, and decided that I wanted to become a doctor. Actually, to be honest, that's a bit of a lie because there were so many things I wanted to do. You mentioned all the kids starting school, and I think it's tough when you start out because not everybody knows exactly what they want to do. I had so many different directions I wanted to go in. I always loved creativity and used to spend hours and hours on my art homework, and 10 minutes on my science maths homework because I found that I could do it quickly. So it was fine. I would spend hours and hours. all the drawing. But I mean, it kind of ended there. So there were so many different things I liked. I think at one point I even told I did a GCSE in acting, in drama actually, which I really enjoyed. And I remember at one point I said to my mum, I want to go into performing arts. They're like, okay. So there were so many different things I wanted to do, but medicine was always something I also wanted to do. So, it was never something I went into because I was pressured or was expected of me. It was something my sister and I both decided we wanted to do. And for me personally, it kind of came from my love of anatomy. I used to love looking at the books, just poring over the amazing illustrations. In fact, just right behind me, I have two antique anatomy illustrations from a French anatomy book from the early 1900s I bought in Portobello Market. But it was those kind of illustrations that really got me into medicine. Interestingly, it was the creative side that appealed to me. So yeah, my sister and I both actually became doctors. So we went to the same school, and then we graduated and went to different universities and sort of went from there. So yeah, my early beginnings were very much in and around North London, which was nice.
Okay, all right. So I mean, both your sisters have done exceptionally well in terms of, like you said, from a humble beginning. Like, the story, a success story of most British Bangladeshis. So you go into, like you said, you want to study medicine, but you then decide to pursue, for somebody who loves wearing glasses, you are the savior for people's eyesight. You joined Moorfields, one of the most reputable, most established, iconic, hospital for eye specialists in the country, if not in the world. Tell us about that experience of joining as a young doctor, and working in Moorfields.
Yeah, that really was the kind of gold standard. I think for anyone who's an eye surgeon, you really want to spend some time working there. So for me, it was a massive privilege to work in a tertiary center like that, where you get all the special cases, you get the complicated cases, you get the interesting cases. Everybody who works at Moorfields is a registrar and above, so you're reasonably senior, and it's just an incredible learning environment as well. I had a fantastic time. It was crazy busy. It was one of the most exhausting and stressful years of working as an eye surgeon, but at the same time super rewarding, and it kind of makes you, it gives you a lot. You learn a lot, and obviously it's such a prestigious place to work, so it feels fantastic to have done some of your training in such an amazing institution. So that was definitely a highlight for me, to be able to work at Moorfields, and I made friends that I still have now from there that I'm very close to. So yeah, a lot of bonding going on.
Yeah. So I mean, I've, fortunate or unfortunate, I've been into that hospital and I see the dedication, the specialist, and so I'm like, grateful to them, right? So there's you, Farhana, a doctor. Mom and dad are very pleased and proud, and then one day, I can say maybe one day or one evening or whatever, you wake up, or I don't know, maybe you're walking to the work or cycling to work, and you say to yourself, I want to do something different. Those GCSE art classes, still, it's in me. The bug is still in me, right? And then you decide to you're going to design cars. I mean, I really want to understand how that happened, the leap from eye specialist, saving people's eyesight, giving people life, I mean, you talk about, medicals, whether it be you have an organ transplant, but eyes is damn special. It's very important.
Yeah.
Tell us about that. I really want to sort of really understand how you, had your own, what's the word, grapple with the thought of leaving an amazing job to go try something different. How did that happen?
Yeah. That's a long story, actually. It depends how much time you have. Well, I can give you a short version.
The short version.
Okay, the honest truth is this, that a lot of people change career because they don't actually enjoy their career. They don't like what they're doing, and they feel unfulfilled. I wouldn't say that that I didn't like what I was doing. I actually loved what I was doing. I loved being a doctor. I loved my patients. I loved having that, the honor and the privilege of being able to change someone's life. Sometimes with something really small, and you make such a huge difference to someone. It's almost addictive. It's very hard to walk away from a job where you get that much satisfaction. So actually leaving was really, really difficult. But I never hated it, and there are a lot of medics who don't enjoy it, and that's absolutely fine as well. So there are parts I miss. I think being a surgeon is such a privilege. It's such an incredible thing to do. get to play with lots of lasers and sharp blades and all sorts of stuff. So yeah, it's very rewarding to do the surgery. And I think any surgeon who stops doing surgery is going to miss that sort of manual element of your job. But I think with me, it wasn't actually a sudden overnight light bulb moment. It was actually a slow burning desire that I had very much squashed. And I remember, so I take a lot of photos and I work as a photographer as well here and there, freelance, but I've been doing that for a really long time. And someone once said to me, Farhana, if you spent as much time at, sort of writing research papers as you did editing your photographs, you'd be far more successful. And that comment has never left me, because the truth is I was going into work and doing all my stuff, and as a surgeon, you have to write a lot of research papers, you have to publish, you have to go and speak at international conferences. So I was doing all of that as well, but really my heart wasn't in it. And although I can do it, I didn't want to spend my free time writing research papers. I didn't want to do that. I would spend it going to museums and taking photographs and editing and posting and all sorts of stuff. So I realized that like my true passion was actually elsewhere. And that's a hard thing to grapple with when you've spent 15 years studying and then working in a very, very niche job where you've had to, acquire certain skills, pass these exams, become really competent. And then the thought of walking away from that is really, really difficult. And it took me many years. What I actually ended up doing is taking some time off work. I took some sort of unpaid leave, took a year off. And I wanted to just think about what I wanted to do. And actually admit to myself that I wanted to leave. I still remember the day where I said it out loud for the first time. I was having lunch with a friend in Chiswick. We were sitting outside having a coffee, and I said to him, I don't want to do medicine anymore. And I almost cried, because it was a very difficult thing to admit when you've been doing this your whole life and you're kind of wedded to it. I always say, like, with medicine, it's not just the job, it's your entire identity. Even when you step out onto the street and you watch a car crash and you're first on the scene, you never stop being a doctor. I'm still a doctor now. So it's very difficult to admit to yourself that you don't want to do that anymore, because it is never just a job, it's your entire identity. And then it's sort of like, well, what do I say when someone asks what I do? Like, how do I reply that question? So actually, if I'm really honest, it was mentally, emotionally, psychologically, it was quite difficult to even think about and entertain leaving a career that was so established and actually really, really special to me. I think if I went back, people always say to me, if you went back, would you do the same thing, or would you have gone straight into design? And I always say, no, I would have done exactly the same thing, because of the sheer privilege of being able to do what I did. I don't regret that at all. And it makes you who you are. It's given me so many skills. So what I did, to answer your question.
Thank you for the back. Yeah. No, thank you for the background. It is, as I said, I mean, we've had a discussion about this, and I found it fascinating. So I'm just wanted, in the shortest possible way, because of the time, for you to share that, like you said, the joys and highs and lows, and your route to the next chapter of your career.
Yeah.
So over to you.
So, I mean, that is actually very, very difficult. And if there is anyone here who is thinking about switching career, or even going into something creative from something very academic, or professional, whatever you want to call it, I struggled, because I think you don't really know who you are. When you've been doing one thing your whole life, you define yourself by that. So the first thing I said to myself is I wanted to spend a year, or at least 6 months, just doing lots and lots of creative things and not really give myself a definite aim. It was just go out, do lots of different things and see what sticks and see what you enjoy, because you almost need to rediscover yourself after doing one thing for so long. And that's what I did. I did so many different things. I did courses in stained glass making, in shoe design, in Arabic calligraphy. I started working in film. I did a bit of modeling. I was just literally just doing a bit of everything, and just seeing, putting myself in different places, meeting different people. Long story short, it took me about 10 months to come to a decision as to what direction I wanted to go in, because I was quite lost, actually. I was really enjoying the process, but nothing was sticking. And I thought, hang on a minute. I thought it was just going to come to me like a light bulb moment. You're going to do this. This is going to be your next step. But it didn't happen like that. I got to 6 months and I panicked. I thought, I've got to go back to work in 6 months. My job, my next job is starting, and I've got to figure this out. So I sat down with a pen and paper and I thought, right, what have I learned in this time? I realized that lots of creative things I was doing. I was writing for a magazine at the time. I was doing photography. And I realized that although those were creative things, I needed more structure. Being a surgeon and being a medic, I wanted something where you go in and you work your way up a ladder, essentially, that has a little bit more structure. I realized that I'm a teamwork person. I love people. So a lot of the jobs I was doing were quite solitary, writing and photography, and I wanted to be part of a team. And then I thought, right, what do I love more than anything in the world that I can just talk about for ages and I have a real passion for? Because, whatever career you choose, it's going to get difficult. So the question is, pick something that you like so much that even when it's difficult, you want to persevere. And for me, that thing was cars. I've loved cars since I was a little girl. The Toyota MR2 in 1987.
Yes.
My flip-up lights, that was the car. So that's what got me into it. But yeah, I had, when I was at medical school, I was that weird person who had lots of cars in my room and everyone thought it was a bit weird. So cars has always been a huge part of my life, but I never, ever, ever considered it as a career for many reasons. I don't know anyone who works in anything automotive at all. I think females on the whole aren't massively encouraged to go into anything automotive. It's just kind of the way it is. And also culturally as well, I wasn't introduced to anything automotive. So I didn't even know it was an option, to be quite honest. And when I decided that cars was going to be the thing I wanted to do, I thought, right, it's got to be creative. It's got to be cars. It kind of all made sense. I thought it's great. I mean, it's like it's a whole industry. There's business, there's marketing, there's design, there's aerodynamics, there's engineering. It's so rich for me. And design is the area where you get to create. And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to create new things about something I'm really passionate about. So I basically started researching how I would get into that.
No, I mean, I was going to say, so cars, MR2, you talk about, you sort of the big, I won't say flash off, but it was a kind of iconic model,
Yeah.
What is it? I mean, were you, putting it in a simplistic term, a secret British Bangladeshi female petrol head? As in, like, did you like this?
There's no secret about it. 100%.
Yeah?
I grew up watching Formula One, breaking speed limits. Never done that before, but just.
I mean, it's not a macho thing, but you love the smell, the look. But you didn't go into designing the engine inside. You went into sort of the bespoke, the look and feel of interior. Or shape.
So you've got engineering, which is all the engineering parts, the chassis, all that sort of stuff, and then you have design, which is kind of split up into three elements. You've got exterior design, which is the outside body of the car, the proportion, volume, the surfacing, how you recognize the car from the outside. And then you have that's the exterior designers. Then you have interior designers who are doing all the seats, the instrument panel, the dashboard. It's more to do with ergonomics and space. And then there's a sort of third section, which is color and materials, involving choosing the finishes, the leathers, the paints, all that kind of stuff. So there's sort of three. For me, exterior design has always been the thing that I love, which is the shape of the car, the surfacing, the body. It's I guess the form. For me, it's always been about form.
What I'm trying to understand is the transferable skills from an eye surgeon, right?
Pretty using much them. Nothing.
No, really. I mean, I was going to say you've got an eye for details, right? So, I mean, what was the first once you retrained, because you went to university and you did after your sort of soul searching, you found yourself. You then logged, September. Hey, you signed up to a course for a couple of years. Right, and you got yourself retrained, got yourself a new qualification. You then go out there in the labor market and you're competing, right? You're competing with other people who've been in the industry a few more years. To tell us about that sort of, in a sense.
That was actually it was really hard. I'm not going to lie. I basically I did a master's at the Royal College of Art in vehicle design. And it's one of the oldest running courses, and so many incredible car designers who are very well established have graduated from that course and from that school. So it's very respected. It's kind of like the Oxford and Cambridge of the art world for anyone who doesn't know about the Royal College of Art. So sort of walking in there and just saying, "Hi, I really want to join this course." They did look at me like I'd lost. was a bit crazy. And obviously I didn't have the background. I sort of walked in and said, I'd like to do this master's. And they said, well, you need to have an undergraduate degree in something just to be able to sign up. But what you need to get on the course is to make a portfolio of work. And that's a book of designs to show that you can design. But honestly, I couldn't do that. I hadn't drawn since I was a kid at school, and I'd certainly never sketched. And they're two different skills. Maybe close observation drawing at school and sketching is very, very different. And you know, the majority of the guys on the course have been sketching literally since they were children. They are incredibly talented. And so it was really frightening to be up against people who are very well established in what they do. They've already done a 3 or 4 year undergraduate course and now on a master's, where I've just walked in off the street and said, hey, can I just join, please? So the first job for me was actually just to get on the course. I mean, I taught myself how to sketch, and I basically created
Let's just freeze there for a second. You taught yourself how to sketch. I mean, this is way before what YouTube channels came in handy. I mean, I'm just want to like really get down to.
I tell you what I did. I tell you what I did, and this is very me. It's a very me thing to do. I just went out and tried to just speak to anyone I possibly could. I really believe this. If you will never get anywhere by yourself. You know, we are made by other people bolstering us and helping us, and so. Yeah. Being such a latecomer to the game, I basically just blanket emailed everybody. The problem with car design, it's a really, really small world, and you probably may or may not. I probably am the only car designer you know, I would imagine. It's a really, really tiny world, and so it's very difficult to infiltrate and to find anybody. And I had no contacts, so I just started stalking people online. And I asked. I ended up finding somebody who I will thank to this day, a guy called Darren, who did an undergraduate in car design, and he owned a consultancy in Shoreditch just doing men's accessories, so pens and tie clips and all sorts of stuff. And I reached out to him, a complete stranger, and I said, I really want to go to the RCA, I want to become a car designer. He was recommended to me from somebody else, so I went through the chain, and said, why don't you try asking Darren? And I met him on a street corner in Shoreditch, holding a couple of drawings, literally going, hi, do you think you could help me? And we just got on. We had a combined love of Islamic art, funnily enough. And I think he kind of he said, oh, I see something of you, you know, of me and you, and, you know, I want to help you. And I'm so grateful to him, because he basically said, come to the studio every Friday for 3 hours for a couple of months. So they took me through the basics, literally, like they had me drawing circles and lines for ages, and I was getting really impatient because I thought, I don't have time to draw circles and lines.
I'm sort of feeling a bit of a Karate Kid moment here, you know, wax on, wax off. Thinking,
it kind of was. It really was. But I'm so grateful to. I mean, I could go on all day telling you about all the different people who've helped me, but I mean, I really put myself out there unashamedly, threw myself into people's faces and said, I really want to do this. Can you help me? And you know what? I had nothing to give them in return other than I really want to do this. And so I am so grateful to all those people who taught me the basics. You know, they taught me the basics of how to use Photoshop, and then I had to figure the rest out. And it was actually really stressful because I was on a timeline. I made a portfolio. I went for an interview, and they offered me a place, which I was so grateful for. And then I ended up leaving medicine and quitting, which was really hard because I had my meeting and I had to resign. And I think as a doctor, you never, ever, ever think of the day that you're going to resign from your job. If anything, it's probably more likely you get struck off for doing something terrible than actually choosing to resign from something that's so important to you. And I'm actually still registered with the General Medical Council because I can't bring myself to give that up. It's just some strange part of me that's still, not that I have any intention of going back, because, you know, I'm very happy and I won't go back, but, you know, there's that part of me that still feels that. So anyway, yeah, so doing the masters was really hard because I ended up on a course. There were only 2 girls in our course, and 3, one dropped out. The rest of them were all guys, and they're incredibly talented. So it was really, really intimidating. And I won't lie, the amount of anxiety I had, because for me, education was about reading, regurgitating, memorizing, and I can do that, no problem. This was about drawing, and it was about sketching in front of people. And that was so alien to me, and I was still trying to learn. There was such an imbalance. I had lots of ideas. In some ways, I was much more better equipped than some of my colleagues because I was very used to public speaking, communicating my ideas. I had so many ideas. I like business, I understand brands, so I was very good at that sort of stuff. But when it comes to actually translating and drawing, I was miles behind everybody else. So that was really frustrating, and I had to work super hard to try and catch up. And that was really stressful. I think trying to do something that new that quickly. I mean, sketching is a bit like surgery. It doesn't just happen. It's years and years and years and years of practice. And so when you just throw yourself into an environment like that, it's actually really hard.
So you told your colleagues you're leaving. There's a group of people who are very important to your life, Mummy and Daddy. How did they take that? I mean, you know, pride to have not one but two medics in the family, right? You know, your sister's still practicing, I assume, right? So you tell Mummy and Daddy over dinner or whatever, oh look, by the way, I'm gonna stop being a doctor and I'm gonna be a car designer.
Yeah.
How was
I didn't
that?
actually tell Mummy and Daddy at the beginning because I was worried about Mummy and Daddy's feelings. No, I needed to figure out for myself what I wanted to do. So in the time where I was figuring out what I wanted to do, I didn't actually talk to them about it because I thought they might just freak out. So I thought, let me just figure out what my plan is first. And then obviously I told them at the point where I was leaving and doing car design. And I think they thought I was having a midlife crisis. Maybe I was, no. Yeah, I mean, it was difficult. I think it's difficult because your parents worry about you and they worry if you're doing the right thing. But I think on the whole, they've been so supportive. I really can't complain. I think they didn't understand it. And there is something to be said for their generation who came here and did whatever job they could find, even if it wasn't what they qualified in. I mean, they worked so hard to provide. They're such providers. You know, things like fulfillment are not that important. That was a luxury they didn't have. That's a luxury that we have. For me going, oh, I'm a surgeon, actually, I'm not feeling this. I want to go and chase my passions. That is such a luxury. That's such a privilege. So I think to some extent they didn't fully understand that. But they were still very, very supportive and just said, you know what, do what makes you happy. And I think they weren't massively comfortable at the beginning because they didn't understand it and they didn't know it. And what is a car designer anyway? You know, what does that even mean? They don't know anyone else who's done that, you know. So I think it took them some time to understand. But I mean, my mum went from kind of really not getting it to literally every time I'd make a new portfolio, she would ask me to print her a second one so she could take it into work and show all her colleagues because she was so proud of it. It's really sweet. So, you know, they have been so supportive. I'm so deeply grateful. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for them being supportive, whether it was financially when I needed it or, you know, just, you know, not telling me to stop or, you know, just saying, you know, do what you need to do. That I'm very, very lucky.
That's really helpful. And I think for some of the parents who are watching, you know, this is the key moment. Okay, so look, done that, doing the college, you're competing with 30 other men or young men in the room. And then Farhana, you know, also the fact that you have a doctor ahead of you, I think that's also gives you a bit of confidence. And I think you put some of those guys in their place, you know, doctor, you know, the people sort of marking their works as Dr. Farhana here. Tell us about your big posting, the first landing. You know, you landed your first job as a designer, car designer.
Yeah, my first job was at Land Rover, and they're up in the Midlands. So if anyone who doesn't know, they make Defenders, Discovery, Range Rover, the big beautiful SUV.
Oh, no, I think all the boys in East London know what Range Rover is.
The girls might not know. So this is
I'm joking. So yeah, I mean, a London girl, you got to go up to Midlands, which is tough. I'm sure you know, it made you welcome. But you're working on, what was your first car you worked on?
Well, so I basically, how I got that job is doing the usual. I mean, I'm very much a fan of going out and meeting people. I think sending your work in is one way of doing something, and you are a sort of nameless, faceless book of designs. But I've always been an in-person person. So I've been going to the Geneva Motor Show for years whilst I was at university doing my master's, going and networking and meeting people, meeting directors, meeting chiefs, getting people to know who I am as well, rather than just because I think it's really important to show people what you can offer. And sometimes being different and being the underdog is not always a bad thing because you can bring something else. And I wanted to capitalize on the fact that I don't mind going out and putting myself out there. Well, I say I don't mind. I don't think anyone likes doing it. It's very difficult. But for me, that's how I got to know people. I wanted to get to know the people I'm going to work for and for them to know me and what I can bring. So I actually ended up winning a design competition, which was at a car show called Salon Privé, which is at Blenheim Palace every year. And you basically pick a classic car and you redesign a modern version of it. And so everybody in my year group had done that, and I won the first prize, which was a really important moment for me because it showed me that I can do things, and I can,
What was the car? I got to ask. What
it
car
was
was
called
it?
the Buick Streamliner. You may not know it. It's a
No, I don't. But
very random about. Yeah, I'll show you a picture.
okay.
But the guy who was judging it, actually, there were 3 judges on the panel, but one of the judges, the main judge, was the design director of Land Rover, and that's how we met. So once I won the first prize, and he sort of gave me his card and said, "When you graduate, get in touch." So like we kind of made that kind of
Connection there.
Connection there. So that was good. So when I graduated, I got in touch with everybody I had met and seen. And yeah, sort of bashed the door down and said, "Can I please come and work there?" So yeah, so that was my first job, which was wonderful. It was amazing for me to be in a studio, and the environment was wonderful. Just to be around all the cars, just to be in the design environment. I was the only girl on my team, probably in the room actually, because we had the engineers and the cast modelers, and it's very, very, very male dominated. So I felt really privileged to be the only female voice, because you do think of different things and you do approach things differently. And if you think about cars, they are bought and driven by men and women, but the majority of the design work is done by men. And I'm really passionate about trying to change that. So it was very valuable to be that voice, to propose something different and to say something different, to show something different.
Okay, well, look, if you've just tuned in, you've missed an amazing introduction to journey from an eye surgeon to a car designer. I'm speaking this evening with Farhana Safa, eye surgeon turned car designer, and not just any car, Land Rover. The big one, the big beast, it's a status symbol in a lot of ways, right? You're at the kind of the top end of the vehicle, the gas guzzlers, but you've sort of as you said, being the only female in the room, you bought your own style, your own expectation, your own class. What's I would say, I'm trying to sort of say in a positive sense, that what's been the reaction from fellow designers and the people? I mean, how did that work out?
What's been the reaction? It can be challenging sometimes. I want to keep this as real as possible. I think for any female who's in a very male-dominated environment, it's challenging. I have had so many comments that have disappointed me over the years, but I don't let those comments stop me. I think sometimes when you are the only female, people don't quite know how to react, and they are not used to seeing females or being around females in that setting. So my personal experience is that in some places I've worked, it's taken a bit of time for people to settle in and kind of accept you, as it were. But then in other places, I find it's been incredible. I've worked at Jaguar, where I interned. I worked at Pininfarina in Italy, in Turin, and at Land Rover. So I've had different experiences across those different companies, but on the whole, it's been really positive. It's been really nice. It's been great to be around other creative people and learn from them, because they're really fantastic. So yeah, I feel proud. I mean, I hope that there's going to be a day when there are far more females in automotive, so that we don't even have to talk about it as a thing, being female in automotive. But it very much,
well, not just a female, a British Asian, a Muslim. I mean, you've kind of like broken all the glass ceilings, and
I'm frequently the only brown person in the room.
Yeah, exactly. Inspired. Well, look, since we're talking the cars, obviously, we are in a somewhat of a transport revolution going on, right? So, yes. Just your take on. Obviously, we are seeing more and more electric vehicles. We are seeing people downgrading from large SUVs to smaller cars. I mean, where do you see I'm just trying to take it in a different direction for a second, which is to sort of get your inside perspective of how do you see the kind of the petrol heads of the future, competing with the quieter.
That's a very good point. And actually, I think that is even more so why I was so keen to join this industry now. Not just because of my lifelong love of cars, but actually that we're in a really pivotal kind of step change moment right now, which is so exciting to be a part of designing and deciding what you are going to be driving in the future. For me to be a part of that team or that thinking is a real privilege, because as you said, you know, there's so many things going on. We've got electric cars, which have been going on for a while, but they will become more widespread. And then you've got autonomy as well, self-driving cars. And a lot of the projects I've worked on have been looking at things really far ahead in the future, to go into work and sit there wherever you're working and have discussions about what are we going to be driving in 2030? What's it going to look like? What's it going to feel like? What's it going to sound like? Is like an incredible thing to be able to do at work. You know, obviously you're not physically making things yet for 2030, but those discussions need to come in now. We need to try and understand what the landscape's going to look like and what kind of products are people going to want. What is sustainable, what's responsible, what's wrong with the world now, that we can fix. So to be part of that journey for me is so exciting. To be part of those conversations is so exciting.
All I want to know is,
so much change
Back to the Future, the car, are you working on something similar for the 2030? That's all I want to know. No, but on a serious note, transport mode is also changing, right? You know, the dreaded pandemic has shown that the world has frozen, has stopped, and people's mode of transport is changing. Now, I know, because I sort of know you, that you've also been recently involved with another mode of transport. It's not just you've been helping to launch a bike. So I mean, I mean, I know a lot of people in London or across the country have taken to bike for leisure, for finding a way to, you know, get from A to B. When Farhana gets involved, it's not just your standard bike that's made in China. You sort of do design and get involved with the high end. Tell us about that. I mean, a lot of people won't know this, and I know people are going to rush to your social media site to sort of see this, but I think I will be exclusively making this on our podcast about you being involved with a new bicycle.
Yeah, so this was a project by a very small team, actually, who my colleague who designed the bike also worked at Land Rover, and we used to sit next to each other for many years, so we formed a good bond. And yeah, this was, so I do design, but I also do strategy and I do branding, because I like looking at it as a whole. In fact, whenever I design a car, if it's for a company, I'm always thinking, you know, how does this fit into the lineup? What is this going to say? What does it mean? For me, it's never just about creating a nice shape or a form. It's about how does this fit into the whole scheme of the brand. So this was a really great project. The company's called Extens. The website is www.extens.design. And essentially this was a new bike. And what I got to do was the branding side of it and build a brand from the ground up, which was really exciting. You know, from the name to the logo to the website to the imagery to what it represents, got to sort of storyboard and shoot a film. So it was pretty much bringing together all of my creative aspects and being able to put it all into one product, which is great. And it's just been showcased in Selfridges for the last month as well, which is fantastic. So yeah, it's a beautiful bespoke carbon fiber, minimal design beauty of a bike.
It's the Bugatti of the bicycle world, right?
The Bugatti of the bikes, yeah. If you have a Bugatti, you've got to get the bike too.
You've got to get the bike. So I'm conscious of time, and I have taken a lot of your time. And as I said, we we'd love to have you on back again, talking more about sort of more of the detailed stuff. So I think we touched on, you know, the eye surgeon, the career, the car designer. We talked about the revolution in terms of electric vehicles and the fact that you are working on things 20, 30 years ahead. You touched on yourself really, but I was going to say you dabbled on a bit of modeling. Now, I remember you did a bit of modeling, right? And are you still doing that? I mean, are you still doing other things, more creative things?
I do other things, because I actually, some people would be like, well, what's the relation? Like, why would you do that? And if you look at my website, there's so many different sections. But I really believe that if you're a creative, you can get so much from having a very wide creative scope. So I photograph car shows. I work in film. I'm actually a professional hand model.
I was going to say, go show us your hands. I know this is the most bizarre conversation you and I had. I remember this
So
bizarre conversation you and I had when you said, I'm just in between shots. I said, what are you doing? Hand modeling. I said, what? Anyway,
showing
for
the
another,
loan.
yeah, I was going to say, yeah, the product name, but you've given it away. Yeah, so your hands is very famous. You know, so you know, you walk down the street, you say, I know that, you know, I know that hand. It
Yeah,
belongs to a friend of mine.
there we go.
So that's just
Yeah.
like no into your creativeness. There's no into your talent, right? You are an amazing, inspirational person. But look, I'm conscious of time, but I want you to sort of really kind of like give something to the viewers, especially our younger viewers. We started talking 1st of September, new academic year for those who are starting college, university, or just starting maybe a new job. You know, from your experience, what can you share about your journey? And with that, I think we will sort of come to the end. But if you could maybe take a few minutes to talk
Sure.
about that.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, I think deciding what you want to do is a very difficult thing. So be kind to yourself if it doesn't come to you straight away. Secondly, it's not something that you need to decide at a particular age. At any point in your life, you decide you want to change, you can do it. And don't let anyone tell you that you can't. You will always come across people who will doubt you, and it's important to not take that personally. Some of that will be out of care for you. It might be from family. It might be from within your industry, because people just don't think that you're capable or qualified or experienced enough. But you just got to keep going. The only person that you need to believe in is yourself. Like you have to have that self-belief that you can do it. And there are going to be so many hurdles. But as someone who's been through the process, I actually feel like a completely different person. I feel like someone who maybe knew me 10 or 15 years ago doesn't know the me. I almost have to reintroduce myself, because the whole journey of transitioning and changing has changed me so much as a person on so many levels. So see it like that. It's transformative. It's growth, and there will be lots of challenges along the way. But you know, you can get through those. There's always a way. My saying is, there's always a way. You know, if there isn't a path, make one. You know, if there isn't a job that exists, get a company to create a job for you by showing them what you can do. And it's not easy. It's not easy always. It's like an uphill struggle. You know, you're sort of swimming against the tide. But you know, just don't let anyone make you feel like you can't or that you shouldn't do what you want to do.
Thank you, Farhana, for that wonderful word. Well, look, let's finish off by talking the dreaded COVID, right? It has really kind of like put everything into perspective, you know, in life, work, family, and so forth. What's been your most sort of dreaded, and how have you adapted through, be it professionally, because you are sketching, like I said, you go to Geneva, you go to all these amazing places to photograph. And I have to say, some, you know, one or two of those photos that I've seen of like futuristic cars that you've taken photos of, and you know, I've shown it to my son who loves your, you know, seeing your photos that you get access to. How has that, the COVID sort of pandemic, adapted and changed your life? How are you coping?
Yeah, it's definitely had a huge impact. It's had a huge impact on our industry as a whole. There have been so many job losses in automotive, which is really sad. And like in many industries, because we have supply chain issues as well, and factories closing, and so it's going to be a difficult time. It's going to take a bit of time to recover. But yes, actually, we had our I was all set to go to the Geneva Met Show this year, and they cancelled it, I think, 2 or 3 days before the show, which was a disaster because they lost so much money. All the companies had invested in sending all their cars over, and actually they're not having one next January, but they're selling the show, and it's the biggest biggest event on the automotive calendar every year. So I mean, it's crazy the effect. And yeah, it was very sad to not go and see all the new incredible concept cars, because it's such an inspiring process to go there. And it's also the one or 2 times in the year where you go to meet all your colleagues who are international from different car design studios across the world. So yeah, that was very sad. And what's interesting is everyone had to move over to digital platforms and launching cars online, which is a strange thing because it's not the same. Looking at a picture of a car is never the same as seeing it in the metal, walking around it. So that there's been some adaptation, because a lot of cars have had to be launched virtually, which is never as good. But you know, this is going to end at some point. Fingers crossed. So we will get back to a bit more of an in-person thing. But yeah, a lot of people are working from home right now, and I think that's great because it gives you a lot of freedom, and it's nice to have a bit more flexibility. But then I think in some ways creativity is something that you do together as a team, you kind of bounce off each other a little bit. So I do miss that. I miss my team, and I miss seeing them in person and having the banter and the creativity, because sometimes working on your own all the time is we always call it like a fresh pair of eyes. I can do a drawing and say to someone, can you look at it? Because I've been looking at it for ages, and someone else looks at it with a fresh pair of eyes and they point out something you didn't see. So there's a real value of working together in a team. So I'm actually looking forward to going back to a bit more in person.
Okay. Well, I mean, it's been, working from home has allowed us to kind of get access to you and for you to give up your time this evening. So thank you so much, Farhana, for inspiring us with an amazing journey from, as I said in the introduction, I know I couldn't do justice, but hey, what a journey from a specialist in eye surgeon to now working for some of the major brand, well, some of the leading car manufacturers, and they were designing some of the best known household brands. And look forward to seeing some of your work and keeping in touch with you. Thank you so much for your time this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. For viewers, that's been an amazing journey talking to Farhana Safa this evening. I hope you've enjoyed the show. Just to let you know that we'll be taking a short break for the next month or so, where we will be hoping to come back with more inspiring figures to inspire you. Until we meet again, stay tuned, stay well, be inspired.